Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with Maddie B. I will say right up front, I've been experimenting with some different things, so the video is going to be a tad bit different today. If there's any glitches, we're going to be getting them sorted out. Hopefully, this makes the video a little bit more stable. I know it's going to be a little bit strange today. You're going to see a little bit of my screen, but I don't want to delay the show. So, going to get going with some high tempo. Matt, you want to kick it off for us?
Sure. This week I saw an interesting story that's developing, and just hopefully it works out okay. Minnesota Vikings defensive lineman Everson Griffin was told basically by the front office people in Minnesota that he would not be allowed to return to practice until he underwent a mental health evaluation. He was threatening to shoot people, threatening to shoot someone at their hotel room in Minneapolis. There was some potential that he was going through what they think might be a divorce, and he's just having some backlash from that. Some of the reports that I was seeing, some different stuff, trying to find more information on it. He was being transported via ambulance to a mental health facility for that, to just see what issues are going on. And he was paranoid someone was going to shoot him and jumped out of the ambulance and had to be coaxed back into it by police. So hopefully he gets evaluated, gets whatever treatment he needs, and can hopefully end up back on the field soon.
That is crazy. And that actually reminds me, ESPN did a 30 for 30 on Junior Seau, and it brings up some of the concussion stuff. I know it's tired and played out at this point, but he had said that he felt the same way, where he had headaches every day, didn't know what was real, and he became really paranoid that friends were using him and didn't like to go out because he felt like they were just taking advantage of him because they knew they were going to have a good time if they hung out with him. So, kind of strange. Hate to see it. I mean, really don't know.
And I think you make an excellent point with that. That I don't know that that's something that's really addressed when they talk about the players and they talk about the CTE. But one thing that isn't brought up with it is the kind of lives that they're living. So when you're surrounded by people, I'm sure that paranoia and things like that probably come rampant because you're constantly met with someone who's pitching some idea of a restaurant or whatever kind of scheme to get money off of them. So I'm sure that they're dealing with that constantly and trying to have people that they're talking with and dealing with. I'm sure that some of that paranoia maybe is from becoming, millionaires overnight.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're going to get approached by people you've never seen. I mean, I would say maybe most of the time. And you also have the people claiming to be family members. If you're not familiar with that, that's a big thing that usually happens to college stars. They meet an uncle they didn't know they had. Maybe he's not even an uncle, that are just trying to cling on in hopes that they see the name, and they might be related, might not be, and approach these kids when they're at an impressionable age. Like, hey, want me to help you out? I'll give you a car or whatever. And then hopefully they stick around, and then when the kid hits it big, then they kind of extort him or whatever. I mean, you see it all the time. And like you said, it's going to be for shady business deals. Like, hey, I need to buy this car wash or this restaurant. A lot of times it's food business type stuff. So, or car dealerships is another big one. Because like I said, the kid needs a car. So his uncle that pumps out of nowhere has a car dealership, and he's going to give him a car. And he'll go from there. And then once he hits the big time, hey, why don't you just buy this dealership and then we'll make a cool mint, and then they end up going under. So it's tough. I really think the NFL should have some type of onboarding class, like an accountant class, or even like partner with universities in each city. Like Pittsburgh, go to University of Pittsburgh and do like an onboarding finance stuff that you have to pass.
Well, I think they have gotten steps in that right direction by having their rookie symposium every year and trying to get all the new players to the league, acclimated with addressing some of those issues. But I think for some of these guys, they're coming up from nothing, and now all of a sudden you're handing them mega $1 million, and you're kind of seeing some of the repercussions of that.
Yeah, it's hard to jump into, and it's hard to put yourself in their shoes because you really don't know. But it's not just football either; it's all sports. They all have some type of that. But we'll go ahead and jump into it. My high tempo, I had a couple things, and I really couldn't narrow it down. I'm going to try to keep the NFL stuff to the NFL topic. I think we're going to move that up, actually. But the big thing that I wanted to bring in is the Philadelphia Flyers, with possibly the worst mascot of all time. I don't know if I sent it out on the Southbound Sports channels yet. They unveiled a mascot. Looks like something straight out of Sesame Street, the Muppets. There's that one guy that was like crazy on one of those, almost identical of him, like a fatter version of him. And what are they calling it? Gritty. Gritty is the name of their mascot. It's honestly terrifying. I don't know who decided to put the eyes like a crazy man, but they went over the top with this. And it goes with the other crazy Philadelphia mascots. Matt, I think I sent it to you. What do you think of this?
I think it's just another gimmick. I think it's you roll out something new to try to attract some fans, ride the coattails of the Eagles coming off their Super Bowl win, and just trying to piggyback that success with more marketing to draw more fans to the area. I don't think it's bad. I think the mascot's a little bit Muppety, I guess, for lack of better wording. But, if they have their research people that thought that this might be a good idea. So, I don't know.
Research people, I think you're giving them too much credit. Because I will say this, Philadelphia fans are the worst. They're not going to like this guy. He's going to be pelted with bottles, cups, whatever else they can find in the stands. And he's going to get the shit taunted out of him. I don't think this is going to work any way you look at it. Fully fanatic, he gets his share of things. This takes it to a whole nother level. So definitely look for that. If you want to find it, we're going to put it up on Instagram. And I think that's been tied to our Facebook. We've been posting some stuff, had some live shots. Pittsburgh Jeff was at the WVU game last week. Did a live video there. So follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Southbound Sports. If you don't already, you can like our page. And we'll put it on Twitter at SBound Sports. And just a reminder, you can always watch this show on YouTube as well. So get into the mailbag. And the big question for this week is, who do Pittsburgh fans hate more, Matt? Boswell or Bell?
I gotta say Bell. Bell has to be the most hated person. I know that Boswell signed his contract, but guess what? He's not going anywhere. I don't think that they would cut him after signing him to the extension in the offseason. You're seeing it across the league, and I don't know what's different this year with kickers having the issues that they are, but I don't think that they're gonna run him off just yet. I think the issue with Bell is that he goes on social media and he has his tirades, and he still hasn't reported. So I think he has to be more hated. What do you think?
Well, I think it depends how this plays out. I think everyone's over Bell. To be honest, his hype has kind of died out the past couple weeks. Right now, it's all about winning games, and Boswell is hurting that. Steelers could be 2-1 right now. Make a couple field goals, they beat the Browns. It's not a tie. Right now, it's 1-1-1 all across the board. And it's not 100% his fault just because of the turnovers that game from Ben. And Ben looked like he was struggling again in the Chiefs game, or the Buccaneers game last night. So we're going to get into that in a second. But I'll say this right now. It depends on who you are. Regular Yinzers hate Boswell because he's the guy that they see every week. You know that they forgot all about Bell because I think Jeff said it best. He texted me that he went to the game, and a bunch of dudes were calling James Conner Connors. Look at that Connors run, which is a typical Pittsburgh thing. You barely know the guys on the roster, and you're going to sit there and cheer. Get him the ball some more. What else they say? He needs to play more up the middle. Things like that. A typical Pittsburgh guy is going to see. He's going to forget all about Bell, because the contract negotiations don't mean one thing to the guys that just turn it on. They see Connor out there running the ball, being successful. He put the game away last night anyway. So I think that's where you're going to get the extra leash on Bell, because he's kind of out of their mind. And that's where I think the Steelers are at, putting him on the trading block. But let's go ahead and let's get into that. Steelers finally beat a team, played almost a killer first half. I think, what were they up at halftime? Was it 20-10? It wasn't even worse than that.
It might have even been worse.
It might have been 27-10. I know the second half they came out too vanilla. That's my only gripe, because you don't have a win. You were cruising. You can't tell me that the Buccaneers head coach was able to come up with more adjustments at halftime than you are. I mean, they basically couldn't stop anything that you're doing. They were able to get Brown in space for the one touchdown where he just ran like a slant and shook the guy. You can't just leave him one-on-one. And then Vance McDonald with the best stiff arm of the year. He just crushed that guy down the sideline. That was one of the Buccaneers had control of that game. I thought, oh no, here we go again. And I'm happy to be wrong, because last week I said I don't think I see a win in the Steelers' first 5 games here after that first tie and the loss. But they get one at Tampa Bay, a 3-point win, a squeaker. They held it out, but I think what really turned the game was Vance McDonald. He caught the ball, and I mean, I know he was bigger than that guy, but if that guy slows him the Buccaneers stop him. But that kind of set the tone. And you could see when that happened, he was fired up. Almost everyone on the sideline was fired up. And it turned the game. The Steelers just were able to ride that just enough to hold on at the end. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Pittsburgh scored all their points in the first half. It was 30-10 going into halftime. And so I almost wonder, being up by that much, if they just went into run the clock out, go into safe mode, don't try to do anything to rub it in the faces of Tampa Bay, and in doing so almost cost themselves the game. You know what I mean? I watched the first half, and then I just thought, well, they got this one in the bag. I think the thing that stood out to me was Connor running the ball. I think he's showing signs of improvement. I know last year we talked about him, and he was kind of a disappointment because he lost all the weight and was a slimmer back, but it didn't look like he added anything. When he was drafted, he was a heavier set back, and it seemed like that downhill running style was going to be for him, and he lost a considerable amount of weight, and it was like he wasn't carrying himself well. I feel like he's at a point now where he's kind of adjusting to what his playing weight is now, and maybe it's because of like having more time away from the cancer medications and things like that. But I think he's running a lot better.
Yeah, I think that's one of our keys in the preseason. We knew that he lost weight, and I always assumed he would have to be a Jerome Bettis type, where he needed that extra weight to push people because he didn't have the speed. But with his patience that he showed, he's a little bit slippier than I thought. Maybe not having the top end speed, but he still has a good bit of the power, and he's able to turn and kind of go through a bunch of holes sideways to the point where he's squeaking out 3 or 4 yard gains when there's not really a hole. So I'll give it to him. And I will say, I watched a game last night, turned to my friend and I said, hey, how many times are they going to mention cancer? It'd be the perfect the perfect drinking game. Because every time he touched the ball, I think I said it, over-under is probably 5, and they definitely went more than 5. Every time
every time he touched it.
Yeah.
That's why I almost held my breath making that comment, because as soon as he touches the ball, it was either the cancer or Le'Veon Bell. There's nothing about like his status or his play. So
I feel bad
that's
for him.
just.
I mean,
Yeah.
He went through a terrible thing. Everyone knew about it. It didn't get near the coverage it did when he was in college, actually going through it. Because he was at Pittsburgh. He wasn't at Alabama. He wasn't at Ohio State. He wasn't at Michigan. He was at Pittsburgh. But now he's on the Steelers. That's a big time team. So of course we have to mention it. He's a cancer survivor. Great. I'm sure he's tired of it. Would you want to be reminded that you had cancer every day? I mean, I wouldn't. You would think that you would try to move past it and be like, because at some point you're going to be scared that it's going to come back. And to have just guys talking about it all the time, I think is just in poor taste.
Well, it's almost like the way that they talk about Rocky Blyer. It's like, for the old heads, anytime you bring up Rocky, the talk of his war service and the injuries and his recovery from that, always carried with him. It was never that he's a football player or running back. It was he had his recovery after being injured in the war.
Yeah, it's crazy that they'll find one talking point because they know that everyone's tired of the Bell thing and they really don't have any new information on it. They're never breaking news. The only thing they broke was, these are the two things that annoy me. At the beginning of the game, they talked about how Bell was in Miami. Cool. What did that have to do with the game? He's hanging out in Florida. They're giving us that ground break. And then who's the other guy? Booker, something like that.
McFarland.
He mentioned that the field was wet 50 times. If you were doing shots and you picked how many times they're going to mention the field is wet versus James Conner's cancer, field is wet would have definitely won. And I never would have thought that going into the game. Hey, it's slippy out there. Look at that guy. He fell. Oh, it's slippy out there. You're never going to guess this, but that field's slippy out there. Unbelievable. So definitely mute that stuff. I do want to give a shout out to that Tampa Bay guy. He went, I don't know if you saw this play, Matt, but it was a deep throw. I don't know if Steelers are on offense or if the Buccaneers are on offense, but he misread where it was. Like, it was a terrible throw, and he ran all the way back out of the end zone, crushed into the wall. They never really gave an update on him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened. There was a real quick glance where it looked like his helmet might have been cracked. But of course, they're not going to go ahead and zoom in on that, so I don't know for sure. And I really couldn't find any information. Now, granted, I didn't do a deep dive on that, so I just wanted to give him prayers out to that guy, because sometimes it's hard. You're trying to make a play, you don't realize where you are, and you just know that, hey, maybe I can intercept this ball, but trying to stretch for the ball while you run into the wall has to be one of the worst things. I actually think I saw an Alabama guy, their linebacker had the same issue where, because the sideline's so tight, I don't think he hit the wall. And I think this is recent. He actually hit a cameraman. The cameraman had to get carted off, and Nick Saban said they're going to look into adjustments for that because there was nowhere for the cameraman to go. He was kind of boxed in against the wall. And I didn't see that one either, but that came across the NCAA news wire as I was researching for the show. So just crazy that how many games they play a year for how many years, and they don't realize who can be where.
Well, I think there's so many more people that have press access that maybe in years past wouldn't or couldn't have had access. Going back to the Pittsburgh game, one of the things that another hot topic was, for as hot of a start as Ryan Fitzpatrick had, I'm wondering how long he can keep that momentum going, because he had the 3 touchdown passes, but he also had the 3 picks as well. So it was kind of like he started the game off like relatively hot, kind of faded, and was like, oh yeah, I can do this, and then like went back and almost brought him back.
Well, the non-hot take on that is, I wonder if, and this is like I wasn't there, but this is just a casual observation, I wonder how the humidity was last night. Because I know I already made fun of the field being slippy, but there was something where Ben and a lot of the other players kind of looked out of breath or exhausted. So I wonder if the humidity was really bad, because near the end there, he was coming up short on throws, and same with Fitzpatrick. The throws were just a little bit off. It wasn't crisp like you would see in an NFL game. And I wonder if the environment has something to do with that. Because if you run and you're a little bit out of breath, you're not going to throw as powerful as you're used to. One of the interceptions, I'm pretty sure, I think it was an interception. It was either an interception or it was really close. He went to throw the ball. They hit his elbow. So that one wasn't even on him. The announcers made no mention of it. They were just saying that he must be off his game. No, he threw it 20 yards over the guy because the defender hit his elbow. I think one of the other ones was deflected as well. So on those two, not really his fault. I mean, yeah, he might have been in a bad position in the pocket, got to hit those windows by stepping up to get your angles, but I mean, it's tough in an NFL game. A lot of those usually are kind of fluky. You get a tip ball, it hits the ground. Like, they're not normally going right to the defender. So I want to say 2 of the 3, at least, were kind of fluke interceptions. Tip ball, and I know the one hit his elbow. And it sailed. He was trying to dump it off to the running back. Down in, he was near his own end zone. He was trying to dump it off to the running back. They thought he was throwing deep to this tight end. But you could see that when he went to dump it down, they hit his elbow and the ball just hung up in the air. Went over his head right to the Steelers. So, I don't know if that one was intercepted though. But, I mean, at that point, who do you go with, Matt? If you're objectively, who do you put in next week?
I don't see a reason why you would bench Fitzpatrick given the start that he's had. I am a little bit biased to Jameis, but I think with the way that he started out and the amount of points, I mean, even we've joked about Pittsburgh's defense, but they've scored at least 4 touchdowns, I think, in every single game so far this season. There's nothing saying that why would you make a change? I think it's almost crazier to turn the reins over than to just maintain what's going on. I think you're smarter just to say ride the hot hand, and it's nice to have that reliever to come in if it looks like you're really struggling. If Fitzpatrick suddenly loses the magic, you have someone that you've drafted as a franchise quarterback to take that place.
Did they ever say why he was suspended for 3 games?
Honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I know that it was due to whatever Uber incident that he allegedly groped some woman, but like the testimony and everything was it was a bizarre situation. Like they said it was accused, but then it never went to trial. It never went to anything. It was just like, all right, well we'll just suspend you 3 games, and nothing more was brought up about it.
It was weird because I thought that it was originally a 4-game suspension, and maybe this is me getting mixed up with Le'Veon Bell, that they reduced to 2 games, or like a Tom Brady situation. But them sticking to 3 was strange. So there I am at my watch party looking like an idiot, telling everyone that James was probably coming in soon as they're throwing those interceptions, because I had thought that he appealed it and got it down to 2 games. 3 just seems weird. They never suspend anyone for 3. It's usually either 4 or 2 after they appeal. So I don't know.
I to be honest, I didn't really follow the story as closely. Like at the time that they were talking about it, I looked at it, but like so many of these other trials and things that are going on, I feel like the accusations come out and then you never actually hear what the facts are. It's just real quick where people are looking to have those gotcha moments. So the accusations there, and based off of other issues that have come up, it was just like, all right, yeah, guilty, and nothing was ever like proved or disproved. Yeah,
I don't know. It's strange, and they're so inconsistent that it makes me, I'm outraged just watching and following along because it's almost like a soap that is fixed. Because some guys they suspend, some guys that are doing actual crimes out there, like the Ray Lewises and stuff, no big deal. I don't even know if he missed time. So it's like you're picking and choosing. Oh, we're cleaning up our image. Yeah, right. And the big thing that I wanted to talk about today on the NFL, I know we hit about the Le'Veon Bell. We'll get into that in a second. The roughing the passer penalty. There were 4 last night in the game. I think they said that was the most in a game since 2001. And it's almost unwatchable. I don't understand how a player, the Clay Matthews one, I feel bad for him because he had one like 2 weeks ago. Looked like he made the necessary adjustments. I know he went high. I watched it a few times. I think the issue was he went high, and when you tackle up at the chest, and then you're going to land on the guy. But at this point, how are you going to bring down some of these quarterbacks? In the defense of the defender, sometimes you kind of need to go high because if he tries to do a quick throw, you can bat it down. How do you think the Steelers got that interception? Getting close. If he would have dove low, that pass probably doesn't get picked because it doesn't get tipped. And worst case scenario for the quarterback, then it's just short because you're getting hit and it hits the dirt. So you're kind of lost because as a defender, you're taught to be in a position to shoot your hands up in the air and knock the ball away. And if you go low, you don't have that. Plus, you're also told not to go low because if you hit them below the waist, it's an automatic flag because you can't hit a quarterback in the knee. I don't know what they're trying to do. I just feel bad. There were a couple times where I saw the ones on Ben, and of course you're going to land on him. The dude is like, how much does he weigh? He's over 250, right? You have a guy, if I try to tackle him as a 200-pound man, what am I going to do? Get run over? Like, you're not gonna try to get him in a position. If you try not to land on him, a safety, a cornerback, whatever, you try to give him like a waist tackle, even put your shoulder in him. How many times has Ben broken out of tackles like that just because he's so big? I don't know what to do. Like, just watching the game, it makes me, I guess, anxious. Every time I see a hit, I'm either worried that Ben's going to get hurt or they're going to throw a flag and I have to wait 5 minutes for the next play. Because sometimes they review it and all kind of other stuff. They have that guy call in and he's like, yeah, that one was a roughing the passer. You could tell by this, blah, 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 blah. And then I have to sit there and waste my time. So as a coach, Matt, what do you do? How can you coach around that?
I don't know that you do. Honestly, I don't think that you can make that change. I think I'll throw a different angle at this. What if it's a planned move by the league to try to generate more points? Higher points equal higher ratings, more money. And maybe by keeping defenders off the quarterbacks, maybe that's their way. It's a backdoor way of policing the game so that the Aaron Rodgers, the Ben Roethlisbergers, the Tom Bradys aren't taking hits from defensive players. Maybe they ease up on their pass rush, knowing that they could potentially be flagged and fined, so that now they're not going to generate the sacks that could potentially lead to more points being scored. What do you think of that?
That sounds like something old man would say that thinks the NFL's rigged from like the 1950s. Yeah, that's rigged. I don't watch that. Like, it reminds me of watching with my pap, watching a game, and he's throwing out crazy conspiracies. Maybe. I can't discredit it because you're talking almost at the level that Major League Baseball, yeah, we know they juice the balls. No guy is going to be able to put the science behind it because no guy has Major League Baseballs. You don't have access to that kind of stuff. And it's something that can easily be disguised. You just wind the laces a little bit tighter. Over time, throughout the game, it gets hit a little bit more, and then they come loose. Hard as hell to judge. You don't even have to change the inside of the balls. Just keep the laces down. With the football, maybe they're doing something like that too. If you remember Tom Brady, and this goes back to your kicking point, he had said that if the ball's a little bit deflated, it's easier to throw, hence more points, harder to kick. So how do we know that they didn't change something in the ball to make it a little bit easier to grip, but harder to kick? And that's why we're seeing on the missed field goals. Because if you go back and watch tape of older NFL balls, they are usually generally straight. I've seen how many kicks come off the foot and they're immediately kind of knuckleballing. Is it because of the laces? Is it because of something else? I don't know. But this is another one that you can easily point to. The worst one for this is, though, it's not consistent. It's like holding. You can call it on every play if you want. Really. There was one where the guy kind of like tried not to hit the feet. I think it was Ben. Maybe it was Fitzpatrick. And he like kind of held up, and they threw the flag and then picked it up. But at that point, you're risking injury. Was it the guy from the Dolphins? He tore an ACL trying to avoid a hit. How? Well, I know why. Because he's less valuable. You don't see defender guys getting all the publicity. So the NFL is maybe saying, hey, we're just going to protect our guys no matter what. It's brutal to watch. It slows up the game. To your point about you saying that maybe it's high scoring, I guarantee that with all the extra penalties, what did they say? Steelers lead the league, so maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive to it because I'm seeing more flags in the game than normal. But I don't know. It slows down the game so much that it's hard to get excited. I'm sitting there. I'm standing up. Okay, we need to stop here. Oh, there's a flag. Oh, roughing the passer. Cool. No, keep that drive alive. Yeah, okay. There was one. I think was it the one that they picked up? There was one where they had a chance to throw the flag, and they didn't, and it would have swung the game. Like, the Steelers would have ended up losing the game because I think the Buccaneers had to punt. The fourth quarter or third quarter, they were down 10 at the time, and I think they ended up punting. And at that time, it was either a call that they could have thrown or whatever, and I thought the same thing you did, Matt. They could have thrown the flag there and swung this game. Keep the Buccaneers driving, getting either a field goal or whatever instead of having to punt, and you're in a one-possession game early in the fourth. I want to say there was about 10 or 8 minutes left. I don't think I made a note of it. I should have. So next time maybe I will. Yeah, I don't have a note here. But that's what it feels like. And maybe it's to keep the Vegas lines close. That's more cynical. I don't know. I don't even know if you want to add anything.
I don't know. I think we've kind of pounded as much of the dead horse as we could. I mean, it's going to be something that, number one, the players' union should grieve it and try to have the rule changed. And I think if with the solidarity of the union being willing to talk to the owners, I don't see why the owners would say, no, we don't want that. If it's the players are asking for something that's going to help the pace of the game and things like that. And
I think they said that they were concerned. I don't know if that was just random players, though, or the actual association. I know Ben spoke out about it, and he said, look, I know the rules are there to protect me, basically. That's a little bit of a paraphrase. But at this point, he doesn't know what to do because you just really don't know. Because you're used to taking a hit. You're going to brace yourself for it. If that defender makes a sudden shift a little bit weird, there's a higher risk of injury than taking a hit full on. And that's where you're going to see more of these rips and tears. Because let's face it, these guys are in their 30s. A lot of them. And you can't take a hit to the side like that. It's much easier to just put your shoulder down, take the hit head on, fall down, live to see a new play, than both of you twisting out of the way. It's going to be the twisting motion that does it. So, anything else around the NFL you saw you want to talk about?
Just saw that with the 49ers, Garoppolo trying to step out of bounds, blows his knee out, and you can already see the direction that it's going in. The guys that they went to bring in, Kellen Clemens was like the name of the quarterbacks that they were going to bring in. It's like, I almost wonder at this point what the holdup would be for Colin Kaepernick to come back. Is he holding? I'm wondering if his collusion trial, if the amount of money that he's going to get from that is so much higher than what he could potentially make as a player that he's not taking offers at this point. But it's like, here's a prime example of going back to, I think, one of the few organizations that might be interested in getting him back.
Oh, I think they already offered him. Didn't they offer him $9 or $10 million? He turned it down. I'm pretty sure the 49ers tried to re-sign him before this all started. So this is all.
Well, they did before, but I'm saying at this point now, like with his Nike ad and with all the other stuff that's going on, is it outside people throwing gas on this fire, or is there any truth to him wanting to get back in the league?
Oh, the way it looks right now is that was all a setup. He never really wanted to come back in the league. And he knew he had to deal with Nike. And they were waiting for whatever moment, the start of this football season, to roll it out. Like, I guarantee, because wasn't it last year, the Ravens were honestly almost going to sign him. And then he sabotaged it by having his girlfriend post a bunch of stuff on social media. Calculated move. I guarantee that he never really wanted to play again. And he's just trying to do this. Now that he did his commercial, possibly. I could see that being more valuable now. He gets his Nike money. They say, hey, now that you're the face of our campaign, you should go back and play again. We'll give you this much extra on top of your contract. I mean, it looks like he's just all about himself for the money. I don't see any other thing for that. It's not about football. He's had his chance to play. He's turned it down. Anyone in the country, any youth, they would never turn down $10 million to play football. Are you kidding me? And I'll leave it at that. Like, it's basically playing a game to make a ton of money. Speaking of, it kind of goes back to the concussion thing. I think it was tied in with the Junior Seau thing I saw. I don't know if it was recent, but Jerry Jones said that he wants the NFL to be different than the college game and the high school game and have less protections. Basically, that's a paraphrase, so I don't want his lawyers after me. But he said that they're getting paid millions of dollars to take hits. It might be coming back to that roughing the passer thing. But it was an interesting take because you're looking at it, yeah, let's protect all these guys that are in college and high school that aren't making millions of dollars. But he said if you're making millions of dollars, you're signing up to get hit. And if you don't, then find another sport. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I did have a note on that. I just wrote Jerry Jones. And, of course, that's never helpful when you're trying to remember what the hell you wrote down. But definitely look into that, and that's something that if I could find the article, I'll tweet it out for the followers to kind of take a peek at. But that's another take on it. Same thing with the Colin Kaepernick. You're getting $10 million to play a game. Yeah, you're going to take some hits. Yeah, whatever. But you're getting compensated better than most workers, almost every worker in America, if you really think about it. So yeah, you might be able to a little bit more risk for concussions, but in the end, you're getting more per hour than everyone else makes in their lifetime, basically. So, just another little thing. I don't think I had anything else on the NFL besides Patriots. I don't know if that was Matt Patricia just knowing the inside stuff, but wow, to lose to the Lions in the fashion they did, could be a change of the guard in the AFC. Chiefs are looking good.
No, not so fast. Once they get all those performance drug guys back, they'll be all right. This has become the annual occurrence where early on in the year people just write them off and think they're nowhere to be found, and then they end up, by the time playoffs roll around, the Dolphins collapse, the Bills Mafia's too busy jumping through tables. They just silently just creep to the top of the AFC and end up with a first round bye. So I think it's early to write them off. They have a good coach, and a lot of their important pieces are still there.
Yeah, that division's pretty bad. Not gonna lie. So let's go ahead. We'll move on since we went pretty long on the NFL today. Getting into the Steel City update. I guess sticking with the NFL. Do you think? Did we give our thing? Do you think Bell gets traded?
We talked a little bit about it last week. I don't think he does. I'm curious. Well, I want to know what is going to be offered, because I had this discussion with my dad, and I said, I think in the deal, if Pittsburgh can land, and for lack of better wording, if they could land a player like a Derwin James and Eric Berry, a safety that can roam the deep middle of the field like Troy Polamalu did for Pittsburgh, and a first rounder, I think you have to jump at it. I think the secondary help, the defensive help, they need a splash type player, or even more recently, to see what Oakland traded in the Khalil Mack deal. I think that kind of sets that if a team is willing to give that up to receive that type of player, I think you have to jump at it.
Well, I'll take a little bit different take. I think they should trade him. He's down to $10 million right now, so it gives a little bit more flexibility. I know the Jets have reached out at this point. I agree with your position, though. They need to get some secondary help, maybe not safety or whatever. I think sort of how they brought in Hayden. Is that his name?
Yeah, Joe Hayden.
Yeah, that's right. He had a huge hit in the game last night against the Bucs, broke up a big pass. I don't know if it caused an interception or not, but big key play. And that's what you need. At this point, it's a lost cause. I don't think he plays for the Steelers anymore. At the end of the year, they're never going to sign him to the contract he wants. So the longer you wait, what's going to happen? It's a sunk cost. You're not paying the guy, so trade him. And you might not be able to get 2 first rounders because was he franchise tagged?
Yes.
So
I think he was.
See, because that's what I was wondering. Right now, since Bell hasn't signed his tag, if they trade him and he wants to play to that new team, they have less guarantees because he didn't sign. I don't know if Mac had signed his. So this year, he's kind of stuck. And if he does sign it, they said that he can't sign an extension until after the season is over. So you're kind of taking that gamble. What kind of contender would trade for him, not knowing if he's A, going to sign at all, and B, not sign that extension? You don't have the cap room. The longer the Steelers wait, the lower that cap hit is, but I also think the lower the return they get. Could they get a guy and a first rounder? Right now, maybe. Could they get, I could see them getting a 2020 first rounder and some secondary help is what they need. They need defensive help. So I hope it gets done. Because they've shown the offense is not the problem. They don't need him on offense.
Nope.
Let him go somewhere else, and he'll just be like any of those other explosive running backs that left their team, and then what happened to them? They fell off. So I'll throw it out there. Get rid of them. Moving on to the Pirates. I know Rick's not here. He gets a little bit more of the stat-heavy stuff. But I will say that the game against Miami has been canceled. So, of course, Pirates are out of the playoffs pretty much. the Marlins too. It's a dead game. I think they tentatively rescheduled it for October 1st or 2nd. Right in the heat of the playoffs. They're not going to play a dud game. Of course, I saw a lot of Yinzers commenting on the article saying that, oh, what happens to the TV deal? Are the Pirates going to get less money? Stop giving a shit about the money. That has nothing to do with it. It's like everyone is under this spell. They've been sold this lie that the Pirates are small market, that they need every little cent that they can or they can't compete. It's not true. It's not true. The owner can put as much money as he wants into the team. He doesn't have to only use TV money to sign guys.
AKA ask the Yankees.
Yeah. Stop falling for that bullshit. It's outrageous. So if that's the kind of stuff that you want to play, Moneyball, by like some fake standard, like you're telling me in Oakland, where the cost of living is so high that they have to play Moneyball, they don't. Newsflash. Oakland does not have to play Moneyball. Give me a break. Pirates don't have to play Moneyball. Give me a break. How can their other franchises be so great? It's because they have a chance to get an owner when they had Mark Cuban, and they didn't fight for him. You got to fight for your guy. Now look, they're getting what they deserved. So that's the only other thing. We knew they were going to be out of it. They made some bad deals, and now everyone's concerned about them not having money. There's no salary cap. It's outrageous. It's just frustrating to see. Moving on to the Penguins. Preseason's not going too good. Haven't really watched a lot of the games, but getting ready for the season to start. So it'll be pretty big here coming up, I think, in a week or two.
Yeah.
So that's when we'll start to get into some extra content. Hopefully the Steelers pick up some wins, though, before that. Let's go ahead and get into some Big Ten football. Switching into college football. I did have... I was going to bring in the talent for the total team rosters. 24/7 finally released it, but they didn't have Penn State complete. They only had 44 of the Penn State players in the list. So it's not a complete list right now. But I will say, as it stands, the Big Ten will at least have Ohio State and Michigan in the top 10. Penn State, where they fall, I think they were like 20th last year, 21st. Can they have enough of a big, I think they brought in 3 5-stars last year. Is that going to be enough to bump them into the top 10? Talent? I don't know. And for those that haven't listened before, you have to have, there's a couple different stat things they put together of all the past national champions. And you basically have to have a top 10 roster if you want to win the national championship. No team has ever won it without that roster. I think Clemson a couple years ago was at 9 or 10. Like, that's one of the closest ones that there's been. So if Penn State can even sniff that, that's what you're looking at. In terms of the Big Ten, after last week's, or the previous week's collapse, not too bad of a week. Nebraska, though. Whew. Nebraska was brought in to boost up the West, and Scott Frost coming in, he talked a lot of trash when he was at UCF. After Michigan had played them 2016, I believe, he came out and said that his team, the UCF team, out-hit Michigan. And he's like, not many teams do that in the big house. But they lost, it was 52-14 or something like that. Like, they lost by 50 points and 40 points. Scott Frost came out and said that they out-hit Michigan. Well, this time, the players said that they knew that that was motivation. And they romped Nebraska. I've never seen a team quit so bad that I don't know if it was actually trending on Twitter, but after the game, people were calling them Corn Rutgers. That's how bad that game was. The Corn Rutgers of the West, 39-0 at halftime, which Michigan, I think that came from Michigan beat Rutgers 78-0. Was it last year or 2 years ago? So if you would have doubled their halftime score, I think that's when I saw the Corn Rutgers thing really take off. If you'd have doubled that halftime score, it would have been the same.
One of my favorite quotes from that game was, Michigan's beating Nebraska 35-0. Fire Willie Taggart. Even
Wendy's, the food restaurant, fast food restaurant, tweeted some trash talk. They said, come get a Scott Frosty to help cool you down or something after this beatdown. And then the fans came out. It was crazy. That was supposed to be a litmus test for Michigan to see if they could even compete. Now I don't know what to think. My other notes, Rick's not here to talk Penn State. Penn State is scaring me. And basically the rest of the Big Ten stuff, I'm going to talk about this Ohio State-Penn State game. I don't know if Penn State can put it together. I don't know if they're going to compete with Ohio State. And for those wondering, when I mentioned the top 10 rosters, Ohio State's number 1. They finally passed Alabama due to their recruiting. So they have the most talented roster. And again, I don't think it's finalized, but I don't think Alabama will pass them. They have the most talent in the country. Penn State was only beating Illinois by 4 going into the fourth quarter. Sure, they won by 40, but at some point, is that your coach trying to run it up to impress voters? Because a dominating win is what Michigan did to Nebraska, 39-0, where it was over 7 minutes into the first quarter. Not a 4-point lead against Illinois, and that's nothing against Lovie Smith. But Penn State at this point, with the talent that they have, they should be able to put teams away early. And I'm not seeing it. App State didn't put them away. Most likely should have been a loss. Pitt at halftime, they didn't put them away until the fourth quarter. The third quarter, maybe late in the third quarter. I can't remember when it really turned, but they were struggling with Pitt. I think every game Penn State's been in the first half. Kent State was only down, or they were tied at the end of the first quarter. They were down 14-7. I can't remember. So it's not like they're putting teams away. Ohio State kind of is similar. But, like I said last week, before I knew they had the number 1 talent in the country, they just out-talent teams. TCU hanging around? Oh, never mind. We'll just turn it on with our depth in the second. When you have 2 or 3, depths in your roster that you can just throw out second string, third strings of 4 stars, 4 and 5 stars, you're going to destroy most teams. Because when teams get tired, that's when you take over. And I think that's what Penn State has been doing. Once it hits the third and fourth quarters, that's where the depth really comes into play. Illinois doesn't have that depth. Kent State doesn't have that depth. Honestly, Pitt doesn't have that depth to be able to compete. Ohio State does. And I know it's a whiteout. I know I have a lot of Penn State fans that listen. I don't think they're going to be able to keep it close in the second half. I think it's going to be maybe 42-28 Ohio State. And they win going away in Happy Valley at night. And this team, Urban's back.
You just hit the nail on the head.
I mean, he's going to come out.
Urban's back, firing. And he's going to try to make a statement, I think, because with missing those games, I think just like we've talked with Penn State having to run the score up on these nobodies, Ohio State's going to look to make a statement that with beating TCU, that it wasn't just a fluke, that that if they put Penn State away early, it's almost a double-edged sword, because Penn State hasn't played anyone they can say, oh well, that was our first test of the year. And
well, you brought up a point I was going to make. The TCU game doesn't look big anymore because Texas just beat TCU, I would argue, easier than Ohio State did. I mean, TCU threw everything they had at Ohio State to keep it close, but Texas kind of took care of them and did the same thing, just out-talented them and looked better doing it than what Ohio State did. So they don't need to win pretty by any means. Look at how Craig Krenzel took them to the national championship in 2002. Just win. You could be beating Purdue by a last-second touchdown. It doesn't matter. But I think that at this point, they're going to silence the critics, and it could be a long night in Happy Valley. Anything else you want to add? That's the biggest game.
I think one thing that may work out in Penn State's favor is the fact that Nick Bosa is going to be missing some time. So I think having one of Ohio State's best defensive players out for the game could be something to keep an eye on. But like you said, with as much talent as they have, they're just swapping out gears in the machine.
And that's why I got to give a public service announcement here. If you're a Penn State fan and you're listening to this, hopefully you don't just follow local news from State College, because I get on the old Southbound Sports account. I'm looking, I see the Center Daily or some Penn State paper. Breaking news. Ohio State star Bosa out for the Penn State game. No shit, guys. He just had core muscle surgery like a week ago. That's probably like a stomach or muscle or a back muscle. You don't come back in 1 week. That's not breaking news. So Penn State fans, do yourself a favor. Go out, find some other, I'm sure you guys have some bloggers out there that can get you high quality news. Don't rely on the local news. It's embarrassing to see how behind they are in common things that everyone else had known about. I think actually another breaking thing is this out? Marcus Allen retired from Penn State. Rick just sent it in. He's out. Is he at the Hockeyville game today? Is that in Johnstown?
Yes.
So, and we talked about it early in the year. How many retirements has that been for Penn State? I don't think he was hurt bad. But at this point, and I don't have all the details, just breaking it live on the show.
Well, wait, with Allen, he was the Steelers player, the 5th round draft pick.
Oh, so he's not in college anymore?
Yeah, he was drafted by them. I thought he was still there, but he was with the Steelers. So
well, that's because Rick's breaking news the wrong way on a live show by saying Penn State has Marcus Allen medically to retire in his text to us. So I will say, maybe not so much of a thing to Penn State, but you got to be concerned whenever you have that many guys medically retire. That is it something in the strength and conditioning program? I don't know, because I don't know what his situation was. But we'll get more information on that. We'll bring it back next week since we try to do it live on the show. Didn't really work out. Other things in the Big Ten, I think that's pretty much it. The Michigan Northwestern game was supposed to be big, but they're 1-2. So, and I think they lost to Duke and Akron. And Purdue with the big win, though, beating Boston College, a ranked ACC team. And I don't know what to do. What do you do with them? They're getting killed by random teams, and then they beat Boston College. I know that's not like actually beating a high-ranked team, but we'll see. Iowa had their chances against Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin is going to be that tough, and they have to play both Penn State and Michigan, I believe. So I still don't see them getting out of there with only with 0 losses. So let's make our shift into the ACC before we wrap it up. ACC football, you know the big one, Matt. Hokies. How much worse does that make you feel as a Florida State fan that Virginia Tech kind of handled you guys and then they lose to Old Dominion?
Well, knowing what I saw versus Samford and what I saw versus Syracuse, I don't know that it bothers me nearly as much, because you look at LSU losing to Troy last year. How much of that was a hurter? You know, it is a little bit from a pride standpoint, but from a conference standpoint, from a league standpoint, I don't know that it hurts you too much, because it's early in the year. You can still, I think there's still some time to recover from it, although probably I wouldn't bet against it. I think Miami's probably going to be the team to beat. They're 3-1 right now on the coastal side, and I think they may be the one that picks up the slack. Virginia Tech has players kicked off. Like the list of suspended and dismissed players from their team is insane.
Well, Josh Jackson broke his arm too.
Yeah,
their starting quarterback.
So they've had injuries, they've had dismissals, they've had suspensions. There's like a series of things that if you look it up that Virginia Tech had. So if there's distractions like that, that can affect your team in a big way. And I know with our team, we've had our share of distractions and things like that we've had to deal with this season already. And it definitely makes it difficult for your locker room and trying to manage just the day-to-day stuff in addition to the suspensions and the disciplinary things that kids get into.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of that division, because that division doesn't have the recruiting depth that, what's the other one, Atlantic? Coastal?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The Atlantic side's the Florida State, Clemson side.
Yeah, that side has more talent. I think Clemson and Florida State both have top 10 rosters, until this is finalized. As of right now, they do on the 24/7 site. So that's where all your talent is in the league. So when a team like Virginia Tech loses a bunch of guys, it's going to hurt. I had talked about Pitt having a chance, and then they blow it against UNC. I actually saw a bunch of Pitt fans down here, and I didn't have it in my heart to ask them how the game went, because I went out to a local pub after the Michigan game, and I just saw a bunch of people in Pitt shirts, and I knew that they had traveled down for the game, probably thinking that, hey, we can turn it around and win the ACC after the Georgia Tech win. You can't lose to the Tar Heels.
But guess what? Bipolar Pitt, they're matched up this week with they got the Saturday 3:30 game with UCF. They'll play them tough, knock off the 13th ranked team in the country, and not bat an eye. Like that for no reason. Like that's what's insane with it, is that you talk about you got to bring it every week because you don't know what's in store. The ACC's they've always been the conference of anyone gets upset on any given week, and whether it's looking at Georgia Tech with their triple option, whether Wake Forest goes up and down with their quarterback play. Cutcliffe usually does a decent job with Duke, where
they're ranked.
They're 22nd right now, and they're consistently they're building themselves into a decent football team. I'm not saying they're top tier, but they're not the same old Duke that you pencil in for homecoming every year.
Oh, I'll say they have, if not better, but the same talent as NC State. And NC State's typically played that spoiler role, where they have just enough talent to knock off a Clemson and get 8 or 9 wins, but not anything above that. They can beat Florida State when they're ranked in the top 10. That's kind of where Duke is sitting right now. Can they play in the championship game and potentially knock off a Clemson? I don't think they played them before that. I mean, that would be a little bit more scarier than playing some of these other teams, I would think. That you know what you're getting. So, I mean, the ACC... I did have one other note that I wanted to mention, because you mentioned Miami. Miami is close. They are one game down on UNC for having a winning record against every other team in the ACC. The reason I bring it up is Michigan's win over Nebraska put them back in that category with winning record against every Big Ten team, joining USC in the Pac-12 and Alabama in the SEC. So Miami is going to be the next team, potentially, at least in the Power 5. I think someone said Miami of Ohio's close, and someone else, maybe Boise. Boise might have one team that they have to beat in the Mountain West, if that's what their conference is still called. So keep an eye on Miami with Richt. Is he going to be able to take care of UNC? And strange that that's the team that they have a losing record against. I know they probably didn't play him as much being in the Big East, but...
Well, I think the other thing to look at from Clemson is with naming Lawrence the starting quarterback, the other guys looking to potentially transfer. I don't know if you happen to see that today or not.
That's a big move, because why would you not? You're there as one of the top quarterback recruits, and he's not the only one. Is it the receiver from Arkansas or Oklahoma State? One of them just said that they're going to redshirt this year and they're looking to grad transfer. Like the leading receiver. I think it was Oklahoma State. They're not getting the touches. He's like, I'm just going to transfer. And I think you're going to see that a lot more. Look what happened to Michigan, and this is what I said for some of those recruiting things that, like, I think it was the blue chip ratio or whatever, that didn't account for transfers because they said that you normally don't play. Well, when that transfer is a 5-star quarterback, it makes the things a lot smoother. And, of course, that's going to bring up your talent. And look how many other quarterbacks are looking to move. Look at, is it Burrows from Ohio State to LSU? You got Shea Patterson to Michigan. You had Baker Mayfield from Texas Tech to Oklahoma last year. When top talent starts moving and having success, I mean, you're going to see a lot more of it. Wide receivers, just Harbaugh alone, because I'm more familiar with the program, he's had a good bit of transfers in. Jake Rudock, transferred from Iowa. He had lost his starting position, gets drafted by the Lions. And both those quarterbacks, I think C.J. Beathard, the guy that beat him out at Iowa, is going to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers this weekend. So when you have two guys that could potentially make the NFL, you transfer. You transfer to a team that is right there. Russell Wilson leaves NC State, goes to Wisconsin. Why not? So if I'm Clemson's guy, and you know who else, the other rumor is Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
The rumor is, and this might just be talking out my ass at the hour mark of the show, if we're over that, but they said that he was trying to get a deal with Nick Saban where, with the new transfer rules, he wouldn't play in more than 4 games so that he could redshirt this year and transfer out. So he'd be available if they need him, but don't play me early. So try not to burn my red shirt if I'm not the guy, so that I could transfer. Now, did he make a deal like that? I don't know. But you need that backup quarterback, because I know too well what happens. Look at Michigan last year. Look at Nebraska this year. Martinez went down. He just got back for the Michigan game with a knee injury. Without him, what do you have? They had a walk-on, because the other 2 guys that were there in the program both transferred when Scott Frost got there. You need to have guys. It's going to be tougher and tougher to get a quality backup on the roster. Just look at what it makes. I'll stick with Michigan. Dylan McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother, came in the Notre Dame game when Shea Patterson was cramping. He did a solid job. He came in against Nebraska. He actually has pretty good speed. He outran basically the Nebraska defense for a 76-yard touchdown that they called back because of holding, which was a phantom call, and that guy wouldn't have got him anyway. That's a difference. You have a quarterback that can come in, potentially run the ball, knows the offense. That's what you need, but because some coaches are playing the best guy, and a guy who's like, well, he's younger than me, he shouldn't be playing, you play the best guy that gives your team the best chance to win. I mean, that's going to be another one. Does Brandon Peters from Michigan, who played last year, he's a junior. McCaffrey is clearly past him on the depth chart. He's most likely going to transfer, I would think. So what do you do as a coach? You're just going to have to let these guys go. Wilton Spate transferred to UCLA. He was their starting quarterback until he got re-injured. So it's just a new league. You have anything else college football-wise?
No, I think I like that karma coming back to Oregon, trying to talk some trash on not missing Willie Taggart and then lay an egg versus Stanford.
Lay an egg. They won that game until they blew it. That was
they blew it.
They pulled a Clemsoning there. Bringing back the old. Maybe it'll be the new Oregoning. You have that team that's right there. You have the win, and then you just blow it. I want to give a shout out to my man Mike Leach, getting ripped off. Was it a roughing the passer or a targeting? A call at the end of that game that kept the drive alive against USC, or ended the drive. Just unfortunate all around. And to be honest, there's nothing that can stop it. NCAA needs to step in and get their own refs, because they already know conspiracy. We've already thrown a couple out on this show. The Pac-12 North is stacked. They cannot get USC to lose another game to Washington State, because they already have how many losses. So their refs are going to do everything in their pocket to get them a decent championship contender. Herm Edwards already lost on that weird targeting, not incomplete pass or not complete pass, whatever. So a phantom call that goes in USC favor when Pac-12 needs them to win? It's only lowly Washington State. So I wish a real team, not a knock on Washington State by any means, but I wish a team with a little bit more pull would offer Mike Leach a job, because I would like to see what he could do at a top tier school. And that's how I'll end the show. What do you got? You got anything for the final bell, Matt?
Dogs keep winning. Got 4-1, survived homecoming. Another big road test, AA team, Mount Union. Come out, support the Dogs.
Yeah, Mount Union doesn't have a win, so hopefully that bodes well for you. I think you're still around ranked 30th or whatever. Didn't really move
Avoid
up.
the trap.
Yep. So that's it for us. Check us out, Southbound Sports. Tell your friends, like the videos. We're looking into improving the show. So if you have any feedback, send us an email at contact@southboundsports.com. You can always tweet at us, SBound Sports, or Instagram, Facebook. Like, follow, share our stuff, Southbound Sports. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.